Fantastic. All right. Well, second year in a row, it's great to be back. I'm really excited because we've made extraordinary progress in the last 12 months. So, as I said, I'm Jim Kean. I'm CEO of MolecularU. And I always like to lead this prezo off with a Commonwealth Fund statistic that sticks in my mind every year, which is in the coming year, 3% of the US population will unexpectedly develop serious illness and account for 25% of the total healthcare expense in the US. So that's 1.1 trillion out of 4.4. So what if you could detect the molecular gathering of underlying conditions and get them years in advance? Well, that's what we're positing is going to lead the predictive health revolution. We see ourselves as the foundational company in this in the next 5 or 10 years. And today, the way we're making this real is that we see the biggest blocker that molecular medicine is not simple for healthcare practitioners and their practices. I want to start out with a patient story. This is one of our subscribers who came in through a concierge medicine clinic. And she started out wanting to optimize herself and be well and be the best person she could be. You can see blue is good for us. And her heat map over time really tells a hero's journey story because she then progressively got redder and redder. And in 2022, when we got the results of her test, her heat map was completely fire engine red. And we're not hypothesis driven, so we analyzed what that pattern could be. And our highest probability came out as pancreatic cancer. So we sent that to her doctor. He did imaging and found 3 tiny little pinprick tumors on the tail of her pancreas. She was so early, she was eligible for surgery. The tumors were removed. You can see then we retested her in 2023. She's reverting back to healthy norms at the molecular level. And by 2024, she's cleared up again. So a fantastic story. That's cancer, but we can do this in a lot of different conditions. And really what this highlights is that all disease is progressive. So Diane was asymptomatic, but if we hadn't done that, she may very well not be here with us today. Whereas you could have Linda with metabolic or Bruce with cardiovascular or a polymorbid condition like Nancy, who's well known to the system and is the highest cost. So for the concierge medicine docs today, who also want to practice prevention, it's a pretty confusing environment. This is just a list of different tests and different ways of assessing people. If you're in a really high-end clinic, you bring all these in. The doctors can spend hours trying to make sense and composite all these. So we simplify all this. We're world's experts at mass spectrometry. We have a single half tube of blood that is less than $1,000 for the patient. We charge $700 to the doctor's practice, and it's about $250 per marker. And you contrast that with if you tried to do, say, LabCorp Quest, you'd have 17 tubes of blood. So high abrasion with the patient, and we're comprehensive. It's a two-sided solution. So our first assay we call version 1.0. It has 280 metabolomic and proteomic biomarkers. We take an extra tube just if we need to rerun. As I said, we're world's expert at multiplexing biomarkers on a single tube of blood using mass spec. It's highly quantitative as well. Our next version of our assay will be about 825 biomarkers that will be out in June. We then take this data and we convert it into insights. And so we've really focused on the user experience for the practitioner. So first of all, every patient that they look at has a stacked ranking of their disease risk. And then we also have reorganized the biomarkers into relevant biological pathways so they can understand disease progression. This year, we're going to begin integrating with standard established clinical pathways. When we do implement in clinic, we pull down the EHR data and make it side by side with the metabolomic data. So looking at our inventory of comprehensive risk and biological pathways, you can see that we cover a pretty big span of human biology. Because it's mass spec, we don't have any intermediaries in the instrumentation, so we're 88% on average accurate. But for cognition, for example, we really bend the curve. We're at 95%. We have 8 cancer risk signatures already in the inventory. We have a lot more being developed this year. We probably discover a new heat map about 2 or 3 per quarter right now. And we're going to add about 12 biological pathways on top of what we already have. We also can provide deep insights. So this is from a Medicare clinic cohort of patients that specializes in cognition decline. There was a mix of dementia, MCI, and then high risk. And so within that, all these patients kind of got to the same diagnoses cognition-wise, but they got there in vastly different ways. So we were really able to endotype different patient groups, and this will really guide what type of treatment you decide to select. So the group on the left, Nancy, had inflammatory and oxidative stress, metabolic aberrations in the middle, and cardiovascular on the right. Here's a snapshot of Nancy. Again, it's a super simple format, connects to the EHR. Health areas are stack ranked. So hers are Alzheimer's disease. We do 0 to 100 scoring. Inflammation is obviously a key pathway for her driving this. And then you can see the pathway selected is amino acid metabolism. And then within that, if you want, you can look and see what the validated markers associated with that biological pathway. And then further, you can see the progression as far as longitudinal tracking. So the way we're going to make money on this is we're targeting private pay concierge longevity medicine. We like this category. It's on fire. It's $45 billion. It's got some very appealing categories. Like we're ideal for GLP management and assessment because that requires a holistic approach. It's a 15% annualized forecasted growth rate. We can also target the 16,000 patient doctors that are targeting this type of category, and they're all located mostly in the top 50 metro areas in the US. The other thing we like about that, my background's in Blue Cross Blue Shield as an insurance exec, and they all have a mix of commercial insurance, and so about a third of our markers have a CPT code and coverage already. We think this really sets us up for mainstream reimbursable as we go in the out years. We also spent last year getting our North American logistics in place. So the first thing we did is at the bottom right-hand corner, we identified a lab partner. We spent May to December transferring our assays. So I'm happy to say we'll be in market this month. They gave us a really favorable price component. They have nationwide coverage. We also got CLIA and COLA coverage as being certified for that. The second thing that we did is we needed a nationwide phlebotomy network, and we've partnered with the MOMS network that gives us 2,500 draw sites plus white glove phlebotomy. And so the whole cycle of the test gets ordered, the patient has the sample drawn, the sample gets shipped under cold chain logistics, the test gets run, and then it pops out on our data platform in clinic. So if you look at our market development and traction, beginning in 2023, we started signing pilot clinics. Because we were constrained by lab capacity, we decided to do them as free pilots where we ran to get the data, although we are in market in Canada already. We have 10 signed clinics. They've been waiting for our lab to come online. They have a great installed base of 365,000 patients. And an added bonus with HQE is they also have their own distribution. So we have a reseller agreement with them. So we're expecting a pretty good year this year. We also have found that the best way to acquire clients is to go to the precision medicine longevity conferences and functional medicine conferences. We set up a booth, and at the last one in December, we had 150 leads. So it's quite efficient. We invested mostly in coming to market. We were originally in Canada. So last year was basically an investment year. And then this year we're set up to then capitalize on our signed contracts and our inbound leads. We have been funded with common stock by mostly one investor for the last 10 years. And it's been a substantial amount of investment by him. Last year we did our financing via SAFE for the US entry. And we're kicking off a Series A this month. We'll be at JP Morgan and at a couple other conferences. We're raising 10 million. It's all to do the stuff on the right side, which is scale logistics, revenue channel growth, adding a couple critical team members. And then, of course, we're a Agile-based software platform. So we'll continue to introduce new functionality and features. I have a great team. I love working with these people. I've done 2 companies with Gene. He's a fantastic CTO. Murdoch's been my CMO for 3 different startups now. So we all work together really well. Before becoming CEO, I was advisor to the company. So I've known Rob for 10 years. And then David Wishart and Christophe Borgiers are the world's authority, respectively, in metabolomics and proteomics, and particularly Christophe in mass spec. So that's how we're able to multiplex. So I want to leave you with why you should invest. Now, I'm not going to read the slide on the left because that's apparent. I spoke to those things in my presentation already. But on the right, let's talk about exit potential. We've carefully positioned ourselves to capitalize on the multi-omic testing analytics, real-world data, and value-based care. We particularly model ourselves after a company like Olink, who was bought by Thermo Fisher for $3.1 billion in 2023. I love the indie music too, so I am done. Thank you for your attention. Oh, Susie, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, great presentation. Really, really fantastic. We've got about 5 minutes for our Q&A from our judges and others. So if anyone has any questions.
So Jim, you have planned your exit strategy, or would you like to become a public company at some point, or there could be a decision change?
I really, so I think the stuff on the right, when I ran the CBI analysis, just given the companies like Danaher and Thermo Fisher on the right, they pretty consistently buy things at about that range you see for Olink over the last 20 years, because they're not that good at innovation. Olink has a great proteomics platform. They don't do metabolomics, and we're more accurate than they are. So I think you could end up getting some really good offers. And our trajectory is such in 24 to 48 months, I think we'll begin getting a ton of inbound around these. Tempus has already been reaching out to us about our cancer signatures. And then value-based care is my wheelhouse from when I was at Blue Cross Blue Shield. CVS bought Signify, and they just do risk stratification based on claims data, which I can't imagine how bad that data set is. So I think that it's very likely that we'll start getting a lot of interest. And I don't really know if we're going to pick going public or not. I actually think this could be a really signature company, which is why I'm so excited about it. So I would rather become the world's repository of heat maps.
Oh, thank you.
Can you say a little bit more, Jim, about the 85% accuracy? And I guess what I'm getting at is how is that improving maybe over the last 6 months or a year? Where might it end up if you believe that 85% is good, but maybe 90 or 92.5% is puts you in a whole different category? Are you going to get there, or are you leveling off at 85?
It's a great question. What we almost see our assay is like a version of a microchip. And so the more biomarkers we have, the faster or more expansive it gets. So our 280 puts us there, but we think that the 825 version in June is just all it's going to do is add additional biomarkers to each signature, which is going to increase the accuracy. It won't be monumental because we're already way up the curve as far as area under the curve, but we think it will continue to add a couple points per year as we do that. Our forecast on markers for 2026 is that we'll probably have our assay cassette will have about 1,900 markers, just given the pace of external discovery.
Thanks.
You bet.
Jim, hi, this is Shrad. So you mentioned, I think just follow up to Jay's question, what is your data set built on? How many patients have you tested on this platform already? For all of these disease states, I'm assuming, are they disease-specific patient cohorts, or like how have you done it scientifically? And is there a lot of overlap in disease states for a lot of these patients? I'm a little concerned in terms of if you're doing a lot of multi-omics, 1,900 markers, how specific can you get about these disease states? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think the best way to answer that is describe a bit about our process, about how a biomarker actually makes it on our assay. So we're super efficient about this. We're not discovering new biomarkers, but right now there's about 1 million new published pieces of research per year. And so the number of validated markers that are coming out with independently done studies is pretty phenomenal. So if we can find a marker validated in at least 3 different independent studies, we'll grab it. We'll see if we can reproduce the results, because that's always the issue in science. And then if we can do that, we'll then go look for a patient group, say, like we have a really good autism signature, for example, and we're about to release a PTSD one. But we'll go find patient cohorts where we can validate that either through, say, a clinical pool of patients or, biobank samples. Although we have to be super careful about those because given it's the metabolome is part of our profile, it's really dependent on fasted state, no exercise, and all that. So we're kind of suspicious sometimes biobank samples don't give you the best data.
And just metabolomics, a lot of companies are doing that. And obviously, as you mentioned, some of your exits, people have been doing it for a while now, right? So what really sets you apart? Is it just the cost or the comprehensiveness of it? What's really setting you apart in this market currently?
So there's nobody else out there that can multiplex the number of markers that we do on mass spec. Most of the other groups, like Olink, does not use mass spec because they can't control the white noise around the data, nor can they multiplex. So we're able to run these, and we're not going to change the amount of plasma that we need with our next version. So we're just super efficient with the material, and we can run a lot on a single run.
Okay, thanks.
Nice job. Thank you so much, Jim. We really appreciate your presentation today. We're going to
Yeah,
move right.
great to see the group again. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you too.